here today. We're going to focus on a couple things to help get users engaged. So one big topic is around governance and system governance. I think most of you are kind of familiar with that, but around the oversight and processes and standards that we have in place to help with user adoption. And then we'll talk about a number of user adoption tactics and things that we're doing to try to increase use of the system. Okay, so just for background, we implemented about a year ago, so we didn't necessarily think that we'd be here a year later talking about our use of it, but here we are, and happy to participate in Collabosphere with everything that we had going on last year. We did not attend the conference, but we had talked to some other users of Central Desktop before we went live, and that was very helpful to us to learn some best practices and gather ideas. We branded Central Desktop as SID in our company, and that stands for ScottMadden Information Destination. We had gotten the idea actually from Carl Frapolo at FSG about personifying the tool, and we really liked that and the way that they were able to make it part of their organization. So that's worked well for us. People talk about SID, and it's become part of our nomenclature within the firm. We don't, unfortunately, have a dedicated knowledge management staff, so it's one of many responsibilities that Mike and I have, and that's definitely impacted how quickly we've been able to roll out some of the additional things that we're interested in doing with Central Desktop. But we've started to get other people involved to help in some training. We'll talk a little bit about that today. And prior to this, we have had a formal knowledge management initiative probably for about 3 or 4 years, but we didn't really have a tool that was at all comparable to Central Desktop. We were using an Access database that was really focused around document retention and document management for all of our final deliverables from our client work. As you might imagine, the final deliverables are one of our key assets because if we're approaching a new project and we want to see the best work that's been done before, everyone needs to have access to our client work. Or if we're submitting a proposal to a new client and we want to understand how the approach worked before, being able to view all that information is important. But that former system really was limited. It didn't provide any collaborative aspects at all. It was not easy for people to submit information. We had them filling out a pretty tedious form, and then somebody was entering that data into the database. And then the other downside of it was that it was not cloud-based. So to access it, most of our staff were traveling 4 days a week, and they were having to log into a Citrix server to access the database, and the performance that they then got when searching and trying to access documents was pretty poor. So we got a lot of feedback about that. So then we embarked on evaluating tools, narrowed it down to a couple finalists, which Central Desktop was one, and decided that we really liked the usability and went from there. So we got a positive response. We'll talk a little bit about some of the feedback that we gathered about 6 months ago and what we're doing with that. And we'll also say that we're working our roadmap probably a little bit more slowly than we thought a year ago. We had pretty ambitious plans about things that we wanted to do each quarter post-go live that included a lot of great ideas people had submitted for how we thought we could use the tool. We've accomplished some of those, but not all of them, and partly because of resources and then partly because of there have been some other higher priority items that have been suggested that have ended up going higher in the priority list than what our original plans included. So this is our icon for SID, and ironically, this looks a lot like that old manager picture that we saw. So, funny thing is, we're going to talk about a survey that we did to gather user feedback, but we do have a lot of millennials in our firm, and we've gotten some negative feedback about the image of SID. So we think we're going to rebrand, or SID's going to go through a makeover of sorts, because as a firm we've had like wellness initiatives and all, and then they're like, well, you know, you got this guy smoking a cigar. But SID has a whole backstory. He's like a crusty old newspaper editor that landed in consulting, and he's in charge of our knowledge management. So Workspace for each project. The primary features they're using are files and discussions. Some of them are using the project management features. Those are the main things. And in addition to the individual project workspaces, we have one central workspace that is the source of record for all of our projects. So there's a database in there that has all of our projects by client, by number. When one of our partners is kicking off a new project, they use a web form that creates a new record in the database, and that kicks off workflow, and I'll let Mike go into more detail about that. But that allows people to not only search across Central Desktop, but if they know they just want to find out where have we done this type of project before, they can quickly search this project database. And we've got some screenshots in here. This is a template that we've set up for the project workspaces. So we've got discussions and then recent activities sort of front and center. And Mike will talk a little bit about some standards and templates that we've been using. Another big use for us, we have communities of practice. So within our 3 practice areas, I think we have a total of maybe 11 or maybe 13 actually, communities of practice. And so these are groups of people within the firm that are particularly focused in one area, and they're working together kind of in a few ways. One is researching trends in the industry, making sure that we're staying up to date on what's going on, helping to educate our more junior consultants about the practice, and then third, working collaboratively on what our go-to-market strategies should be. So if we see there's a trend in this area, what should we be offering to our clients that maybe we're not offering today? And so we have community practice workspaces set up to help with all of those things. And they're using some of the project management features, certainly the files and discussions. We've got forum discussions for the communities of practice, and that's been going pretty well. We also have workspaces set up for some of our internal firm departments. So we've got a corporate services group that handles all of our billing, travel and expense reimbursement, benefits, and other HR activities. We have 2 research groups. I lead one of them, and a colleague of mine leads another one. And so we've definitely got a vested interest in making sure that information that we're gathering is shared and easily accessible to our consultants. And then we've used it for a lot of internal initiatives and events. So, for example, we use it in conjunction with a meeting that we have every year to post information about the event, the agenda, and also to do some fun kind of team building talk in advance of the event and post pictures and things afterwards. We also went through a rebranding initiative as a firm this year, and we use that as a way to collaborate and provide feedback on some of the designs and copy that was being developed. And then, for the first time, we created a new hire workspace. So, as a firm, we traditionally have a group of new hires that are starting each summer after business school. And this gave them a way to start interacting together as a group, getting to know each other, and also having quick access to some of the background information. So, our employee manual and other resources about the firm will be available to them. And then, we've had some other kind of creative suggestions as people have thought about, well, I could really use this for something else. So we've got a relatively new process in place that we started this summer where each of the partners in our firm are projecting sales going forward on a monthly basis, and that's related to both ongoing projects as well as new business development. And so they each have a workspace with a database, and then that data gets rolled up and provides a view to our leadership of what's in the pipeline for the different practice areas. And some other things that have come up around some of our client work, around a readiness checklist for going live with a certain implementation and things like that. So now we'll move into a little bit about governance. We have some roles established. I suspect many of you have probably done some similar things. We worked closely with Katie Gaston, our implementation consultant, and she provided some suggestions on what they typically see, and we tweaked that a little bit to meet our needs. But during our implementation, we had a steering committee, and executive sponsor, and myself and another research department lead. And then we have one partner who's quite a bit, very technology oriented. He's got an IT background and has a lot to bring to the table. And we were meeting with the steering committee at least monthly during implementation, but once we went live, we've moved to a quarterly meeting schedule. And then twice a year, we've got an expanded steering committee meeting where, in addition to that group, we're including our president as well as the other practice leads and head of our corporate services group. So as a way to make sure that they have a voice and are staying on top of what's coming down the pipeline. We also have a user group, and we're calling them our power users. So it quickly became clear to us that there were some people that were our early adopters that were very excited about the tool, and we have engaged them formally after we did our user survey, which we'll talk about. One nice thing about this group is that it's a pretty good cross-section, but it also includes some of the more junior members of our firm. So we've got people that really are using it on a day-to-day basis and can also influence their peers and make an impact. So we're asking that they help identify best practices in using the tool. We're engaging them in some of the training, and then just providing us feedback to help influence what our next steps are going to be as well. The least formal of these so far for us is a technology group. Mike is our system administrator, and he, along with a couple members of the power user group who are more technically inclined, we're wanting them to monitor some of the system enhancements that are rolled out, or if they've got other ideas for how they think we can use it, to bring those forth and keep us on top of potential new things that we can be doing with Central Desktop. In addition to the groups, we have a few roles. So I mentioned Mike. I suspect many of you probably have a system administrator. He's doing a lot of the behind-the-scenes work, but also then if there are some concerns that users are expressing, we want our users to go to Central Desktop Help directly, but if there's things that we need to get involved with, we would certainly help them in that regard. For the communities of practice, this has been an important role. We have a content lead. So for that community, they're the ones that have responsibility for the workspace and how it's being used. They're trying to make sure the community is taking best advantage of what's available, monitoring the content that gets posted, and then also helping with user adoption within the community. And so typically when the community in practice has a meeting, that content lead will give an update and say, here's some new things that are available to you in SID, and here's what you can do with it. For each of our projects, we also designate a role for closing out the project. This is an area where we really struggled before because our former processes were really tedious. So we wanted people to make sure all the required documents were there and also tag them. And that's the role of this project closeout designee. And with Central Desktop, it's so much easier than it was before. Previously, they had to use an Excel-based form, submit it to somebody, and then it might take weeks or longer before it actually got into the system. And now they can do it all real time and get it updated. Okay. And now I'm going to let Mike talk a little bit about some of the processes and standards that we have in place to provide some further governance.
Before we actually launched Central Desktop, or SID, for us, we had a process in mind that we wanted to drive through the tool, and that is largely based on the database that Karen mentioned earlier that houses all of our projects and history of what we've done. The process is around project startup, closeout, and then modifications to those projects. We've also added some standards that we've asked everybody to adhere to when doing these, and I'll talk a little bit about them as I go through each process pretty quick. First, we had the project set up. This is what Karen had mentioned before. We have a web form that's hosted outside of the system to make it easy and accessible. On that web form, we have a bunch of attributes and fields that people need to fill out. The attributes are predetermined from some of our practice area leads, and it really helps to drive the searches for relevant content for our projects, for our consultants. The other information on it is information our billing team or our accountants need for setting up the project in their billing system. Once they hit send and submit it, that kicks off workflow to send all of the relevant information to the billing department to get it set up on our system. Once they perform their quality assurance check on what the information they need, they then assign a project number that's unique to the project, and it sets off another set of notifications. Those notifications go to a couple different groups of people, one being firm leaders who like to keep an eye on the projects that are coming into the firm. Another is the project team itself. Anybody who was designated as a member of the project team gets this notification so they know what number they're billing to, as well as the executive assistants and myself. I get the email saying that this project is ready to set up a workspace for. I take that, all that notification has everything we need on it to build the workspace, all of the relevant information needed to add. I then take it and use our template that we talked about earlier that has kind of common look and feel to it for our consultants to be able to move from project to project and not really have to worry about getting ramped up on the different looks of all these different workspaces. Within that, I make sure I add the relevant people. One being the project closeout designee, they get admin rights, so they can kind of control the workspace themselves within it. Once I create that, we mark a field in the database that, again, sends another notification out to that project team saying that that workspace is ready. A little bit about the workspace template you saw earlier. One of the key parts of it is the folder structure that we have set up here. There's another way that we want our consultants to be able to come to a workspace and see this folder structure, to be able to know where things are going to be between the projects, and not just have to worry about different people running their different projects a different way. The other thing, we enabled a bunch of features that we thought would be helpful for our project teams. We allow them to get a little bit creative with it if they want to. The admin has the right to customize its home page. We just also ask at the end that they retain the folder structure and get that workspace back to the templated view so everybody has the consistent view across workspaces. Here is a view of one person who did get a little creative with their workspace. They like to have a visual representation of some of the milestones and cost-saving attributes that are accounted to this project. And you can see that they did change the folder structure a little bit, but again, we'll cover that in the next process that we ask them to adhere to changing it back once they're finished. When they're finished with the project, we have a couple of things we ask them to do. One is to tag all the relevant documents with certain search criteria that would be helpful for someone who wants to find that information. We then also ask them to make the status final, just so everybody knows the context of the document is finished and it's a finished piece of work. Once they go through that and make sure all the documents are in the right folders, they go back to our Project Central workspace and mark a field saying that the workspace is closed. Send a notification to me. I go in and do a check to make sure that they have everything tagged. If they don't have anything tagged, we make sure that the attributes that were specified at the beginning of the project at least make it over to the documents themselves, so that, again, when people are searching, they're able to find what they need. Once I make sure everything is here, I also go in, change the field, they get another notification, making sure that everything is closed out. In that process, we also take the documents that are in the workspace, move them back over to Project Central, attach them to that database record, so people, when they're viewing that record, that project, they're able to view the relevant documentation instead of having to go find it elsewhere. Those folders are then shared back to the workspace so they can get a little bit of context of how they were used within the project itself. Also, project modifications happen a little bit less, but it gives the people a chance to change information of the project while the project's going through. If it's a child database that's set up to the big Project Central database. We give them a form to fill out to specify all the changes that need to be done. Kicks off a notification to me again, and then I forward that to anybody else that needs it. The relevant changes are made. We go back in, mark it as complete, and they get a notification letting them know that the project or the modification is done to close the loop, so they don't have to worry about it anymore. Karen's going to talk to you a little bit about the user feedback that we got after. Sorry, got one more slide. This is just kind of a matrix, kind of summarizing what we just talked about. It's got the three processes, and down here it highlights some of the features that we use within Central Desktop. Most of them have to do with the database and notifications, workflow notifications, web form, also attaching files. Others have to do with file sharing between workspaces, and then document statuses and tagging and things like. Now Karen can talk to you about a little bit about that.
So one aspect of our business that we do for clients are internal customer satisfaction surveys. So particularly in that corporate and shared services practice, we run a lot of surveys, and as a result, we are constantly using our survey tool to do internal surveys as well. So we knew from around the time when we implemented that we wanted to give it some time and then do a survey. So we implemented in October, and we had targeted doing a survey in the spring, about 6 months after go live, to get feedback on how people were using it, where did we need more training. And so I'm going to go a little bit through the survey and how we structured it and what feedback we got. So as I mentioned, we'd gotten a lot of positive feedback, but we didn't really know a lot of the details about which aspects people liked or where they might need more help. We knew, certainly from just talking to people, that users were at different stages of adoption. We wanted to see what we could do about that. And collaboration was definitely a little slower to take off than we had hoped. Our firm historically has just been collaborating through Outlook and email, and this was a big change for us. So certainly some of the feedback that we got supported that, and we realized that there were some training needs, which we'll talk about. So in addition to this survey, we actually did focus groups in our offices as well, because we wanted an opportunity to drill a little bit deeper with some users, find out what may be causing some of the behavior that we're seeing, and get some feedback that way. So talking a little bit about how we structured the survey, we basically came up with a set of questions around each of our different use cases. So I talked already about the communities of practice and project work. Other use cases that we included in the survey were searching, new project setup, which Mike went through, and then some other uses as well. And so for each of the use cases, we wanted to understand frequency of use, how easy people found it to use, and then how useful they felt that was to the particular use case. And over here, this is just an example. It's probably hard to read, but I know the slide will be available. Of some questions for one of the use cases around project work. And in addition, there were some open-ended questions in each section where people could provide comments or other feedback they wanted to share. We also asked about the different features that were available in Central Desktop, and actually I misspoke a little bit, but here's where for all the features we asked them understanding, ease of use, and usefulness. Let me go back a minute here. On the feedback on different aspects, we asked about layout, do they feel comfortable, and other dimensions like that. And we knew that there were some users who were not using the tool or not using the tool very much, and in some cases that might have been because of the role they were in, but in other cases that was just because of slow adoption. So we wanted to get feedback about why they weren't using it yet, feedback on training needs, and any other comments that people wanted to provide or suggestions for improvements. So what we learned, overall, SID was viewed very favorably. However, the use and adoption was probably not where we had hoped it would be. So what you see here is just across the community practice work projects and searches, how frequently people were using it. And the blue represents the small percentage that we're using it on a daily basis. The green to cut the data based on our types of users. So what we thought to be true was in fact true, that the use definitely varied across projects. It varied by partner. So the partners that were more comfortable with the tool were certainly more likely to make that the way they wanted to operate with their project team. Others who were not comfortable, who wanted to operate in the traditional way, the project teams were much less likely to use it because it was almost a redundant thing if they needed to put something in the workspace that they were already going to have to share another way. Across the communities of practice, we had some that were really leading the pack and others that had not done a whole lot. And Mike's going to talk about how we worked with the communities to increase their adoption. So really from all the feedback, the biggest issue that we found was user skills and confidence. So as I mentioned, this was a big change in the way we operated, and what we found is that there were some features that people were not really clear on how to use or very comfortable with. One in particular was notifications. There was a big fear, oh my gosh, I'm going to accidentally notify the whole firm when I post a discussion topic and I didn't mean to. And then the other thing was just getting comfortable putting your comments out there in more of a public forum versus maybe before where it was a limited group that was getting your email. So those were the two biggest things that we found. So we definitely knew that more training was needed. We also, a little surprised by this, but a number of people provided comments indicating that they thought we could increase user adoption by putting more standards in place. Our firm has historically been very entrepreneurial, so we were trying to find a good balance between setting some standards but not making everything mandatory because we didn't want to go too much against our culture, but there was some support for maybe getting a little bit more standard because people saw a lot of value that the tool could provide. There were also some easy changes that could help orient users. We've included a couple of comments here, but when this survey was done, we had not yet rolled out a workspace that now became our company intranet, and that was really helpful because people felt like it provided a framework and orientation for how to find different things within SID that was not there when we first started. And we also discovered that there's some favorite features people have. Version control is a big one. That's always been a hassle for us the way we historically have interacted. We've got the latest version and managing the fact that, we've got 15 versions of our slides that we talk about the firm when we go visit the client. So getting that under control is important. And using the feedback, we put together a training plan basically for the next 6 months. As I mentioned earlier, one aspect of that training plan was engaging our power users. So prior to that, Mike and I and then another member of the steering committee had mainly been the ones conducting training. And just from a bandwidth standpoint, but then also getting more people involved in sort of spreading the word, it's been great to have our power users help deliver some of the training. And we already have a forum once a month where everybody gets together in each office for some topical training. And what we've done is we've carved out the first 10 minutes of that session each month, and one of the power users going over a small topic related to SID. So, for example, they talked about the document control features, they talked about notifications, trying to get people comfortable with things in little bites instead of a big session. We have a sort of a plan of things that we have asked them to address based on the feedback and things that we know are in need. And then we've got longer case studies that are scheduled for January, where we're going to have some project teams showcase how they use the tool, or perhaps one of our communities in practice showcase how they use the tool in more depth. And you're going to talk about the office hours? Okay. We've got one other aspect that Mike will talk about. So I think that the training that we're going to do is going to extend beyond 6 months, but that's what we have planned for the near future. And we also wanted to highlight a couple of these tactics that we're using are things that were cited in a survey in Michael Sampson's book on user adoption as being effective. So this over-the-shoulder training with power users was indicated to be the most effective training strategy. About 30% of the participants that survey, and then exemplar stories, which are very much like the case studies that we're planning to showcase, was also cited as being very effective. Okay, so I'm going to pass back to Mike on some adoption tactics and metrics.
Again, before we actually launched the Central Desktop, we had a couple of things in mind that we wanted to use to drive adoption. I meant to mention it before, but I think that the process that we set in place, not only did it make things more simple for our consultants, but it also helped them get a little more oriented with the system as they set up projects. Another thing we did is we made it available to the internal initiatives for our firm. So just like any other firm, we have initiatives that take place. I know one kind of happening in tandem with the implementation of SID was a new billing system that we were putting in place. We let them collaborate with Central Desktop because the differences in locations really helped them out, making sure everybody's on the same page. We also, as Karen mentioned earlier, we worked with the COPs to help them get their site up and running. We showed them how to use notification, how to best organize their workspace, forums, things of the like that would really benefit them. The way to drive notifications from the system and letting people know that the meeting document's on here or the time has changed and things like that, just to kind of help them get used to the system early on. We also requested the partners to get a little involved. I think we had mentioned earlier, we asked them to dictate the use of the tool for their projects to help drive adoption. We created a tips and tricks workspace where people can go in and share ways that they have used it and post notifications, send out to everybody. And we also encourage them if they run into issues, to post it and either let us know so we can follow up with Central Desktop or on how they resolve it themselves. And lastly, Karen had also mentioned this before, we engaged our new hires before they even came into the firm. We reached out to them using external licenses so they could go to this workspace, see all the documents that they need for their training day, as well as give them a way to collaborate, get to know each other a little bit before they fly over and have their training session. Going back to the book that Karen had mentioned, there was a high percentage of people responding, say, getting executive support was the main driver of user adoption for them. Some of the things that we're going to be doing and have already started is one is the development of the intranet. We've kind of redirected everybody to go to this workspace as their homepage rather than the dashboard. In there, it has a lot of common links between the firm and things that they would need to easily navigate to search and to post content. As well as we posted our production templates. So all of our PowerPoint and Word templates that we posted on there made it easily accessible to them. Karen talked a little bit about the Power User Group. Really hoping that they are able to extend our reach to engage people on the use of the system and what works best for projects and the things that they ran into. And lastly, we began using sandboxes. We give these people access to clones of the workspace so they can play around with the features without having the fear of notifying the whole firm or changing the workspace to a position where they didn't make sense and confusing, gives them a little more comfort when they're taking the initiative to customize the workplaces themselves. And again, about 20% of the people from that survey said that giving the sandboxes had a positive effect on user adoption. We also track metrics on a monthly and quarterly basis. We use the company reports available through Central Desktop to keep an eye on a couple of things. A lot of them have to do with users and how often the system's being signed into and pages viewed, along with tracking workspace groups and how often things are being viewed in there. These are about 2 of the 9 or 10 different views that we like to track on a monthly basis. Lastly, what's next for us? As we had mentioned, more training. In the next month, we plan to set up office hours for our employees where we engage the user group again to make themselves available for a couple hours, a group in each office, where people can come in, bring their laptop, sit down, and show them, engage the user to show them how they use it, the best way to use it, and some little ideas along using it. Another area is additional uses. We want to set up workspaces for business development conversations where partners and directors can collaborate on different ways that they're using to sell new business. Competitive intelligence, ways to track, collaborate to track how our competitors are working in the spaces they're working in. And I like the client readiness checklist that Karen had mentioned before. We also are going to continue to put emphasis on the processes that I highlighted earlier, mainly making sure deliverables make it into the system and are able to be searched, and effectively tagging everything so that they do show up in searches when it's necessary. I think that does it for us. If anybody has any questions.
How many employees?
About 120. So.
Do you, I don't know if this is even an option, do you require tagging? I mean, you require it, but I mean, could does Central Desktop, can you force that to be required?
I don't think so. No, we at least try to get them to, we specify in that web form that we at least try to bring those attributes into documents at the end if they're not tagged.
Yes, that's part of the QA that Mike does, yeah. And we make sure that the proposal for the work has been tagged as well as the deliverables, but that's one thing we're still struggling with. A lot of people don't take the time to tag a lot of working files or other things that could be very useful to people, and so as a result, people are getting a lot of things back in search results, and I think there's room for us to try to improve on.
But you standardized your tags?
We have suggested tags, so we previously in this other system had gone through an exercise of like what are all the attributes or keywords that are important to the types of work that we do, and we wanted to make those readily available for people to use as tags. So when Mike sets up a workspace, he's putting a document in there that has all those tags associated with it so that they show when somebody's going to tag something. But they're not limited, they can still add other tags.
Essentially like a blank Word document that has all the tags preloaded, so when they start typing it, it pops up and makes it easier for them.
How much curation do you actually do on those tags over time? Priority shift or processes improve over time, and then maybe you want to split or combine tags going back. Did you ever go and do that sort of thing?
Well, we haven't done a formal effort with it yet, but when we were first implementing, we brought over a lot of data from this old database, and I think if we went through, that might be something where if we wanted to do a big tag overhaul, we might engage professional services to help get that done and map the old tags to the new tags and do that in a efficient way. So
kind of as a personal use of my own, whenever I notice something that might be off, I correct it. A lot of times it's people not using comments or something like that, and I go in and just change it as it comes up in my own searches. And I do encourage other people to do that. If they see something that's a little wonky, then I ask them to take a second and make it fix it.
Or if it's not tagged, and take the time to jot these tags.
Have you experimented at all with using reporting plus the tagging them? I mean, sure, we cover tags and reporting, but have you experimented at all with that to come up with documents that are not tagged or should be tagged differently? Or
we've looked into it a little bit.
Not extensive, but we do, part of our dashboard, we do track the key search terms, which will eventually go back in and integrate that into some of the attributes that we use.
Yeah, and we were trying to look at the file level reporting to see if there was any way to identify untagged files. I'm not sure we've achieved that yet, but that would be helpful because then we could pinpoint which ones we needed to clean up and do that in a targeted way.
Did you have an executive advocate? Was that somebody that you had brought in early, or somebody that kind of felt in later?
We had an executive sponsor from the beginning. So he's part of our steering committee. He leads our energy practice, which is our biggest practice area, and so that was very helpful. And he continues to be a huge champion of products and tool. So regardless of whether we're in a training session or some other non-SID oriented discussion, we'll constantly make mention of it.
On the tool.
Yeah.
Even recently, we have every quarter we try to, using those reports we do, we try to highlight some super users, and you give him gift cards to Starbucks or something like that. And as soon as that announcement goes out, he makes sure he reaches out to them and thanks them for their use of the tool and championing.
And our president has been very supportive as well. So.
Do they actively use the tool as well? You're probably second sponsor, or are they kind of?
I would say they're probably middle of the road. So they're getting more comfortable with it, and Stuart, who's the executive sponsor I mentioned, once he started to realize some of the benefits for his own project teams, he said, okay, I'm absolutely going to use this going forward. So we started to do that.
What was the lifespan of your project? Typical average?
Oh, it varies a lot. So any shortest is probably 4 weeks, and I would say 8 weeks to 3 months might be kind of a typical range, but then we've got projects that are 3 years long. So it can be a lot. And one thing we're trying to do on some of those longer projects is getting people to clean up and tag stuff before the end. So we know that there's valuable things that they're contributing and could be useful to people before the end of that project. And so we're trying to encourage that as much as we can.
And do you invite everybody into those projects, or just the participants of that project?
Just while the project is active, it's only people working on the project. I think for us there was a little bit of concern about people searching and finding documents that aren't necessarily final and assuming they're final.
And we also actually have some situations where we're working on different sides of certain issues, and so there's a need to segregate the work while it's in process. But one thing that we've done on like this long project I'm mentioning, we knew that they had finished the body of work, and so one of their folders that had some key things we thought could be useful got shared into one of our research workspaces, even though the project is still active. So that became available to everybody.
So you basically take those final deliverables and then push them to like a common space or something. Is that what I heard?
Well, once it's closed, the workspace is made available. So there's things are cleaned up, so any confidential information would be segmented and put in a different workspace, and then it is linked, so they could find it either by getting to that workspace or through the Project Central master database search.
What kind of workflow automation have you done?
Yeah, mostly it's around changes to the records that kick off different tasks for everybody. I don't know if we've really started using the folder level workflows quite yet, but mostly it's whenever something or a project is added, sends a notification out to people who need it and things like that. And those are driven by specific fields that we put in that database. Like one is the project number, one is the URL for the workspace, so it's who it needs to go to, a little more pointed than just blasting everybody.
What about like, user discovery? You guys, I mean, you have 120 people, so not everybody doesn't know everybody. How do you sort of know who's expert at what?
You know,
if there's anything like that.
this morning I was making a note to remind myself something else we need to do, but one of the things that we were interested in about Central Desktop was the fact that you could customize the user profiles. So we intend to add, we're getting ready to do a skills survey across the firm to find out people's levels of experience in different areas. And we want to put that information into their user profile, so if somebody needs an expert in nuclear energy, they can quickly search that. And now the user profile fields are searchable, so they can limit their search just to that and quickly find somebody with that expertise. As we
reports too, right? These oftentimes reports how active
Right.
it is, right?
And that's been more important as we've grown. I think, when we were less than 100 people, it was like, oh, these 5 people have this skill set. But now that as we grow bigger, it'll be more and more important.
Do you allow your clients' project teams into Central Desktop, or are you using external or not?
We have done a little bit of that. I think there's an opportunity to do a lot more. So whenever a project has requested it, we've made that available, and we use the external documents for that purpose.
Because the one thing we have to think about is how you can provide them documentation if they want it from Central Desktop once the project is done. So I'm just curious if
Right. And then we've had some clients who are already heavy users of SharePoint, and they sort of said, well, this is what we're going to use. So in that case, we have not, but it's available for anybody that wants to use it.
We have had instances where people ask their client to get access to the site at the very end of the project so they can download what they need and
Sort of temporary access to it.
Within the company, are there any other tools that are used? One of the challenges that I've faced is we have several different database tools that are used across from children's hospital, and so just adopting one more tool in this group has been a little bit of a challenge.
This is the only corporate tool, but previously we had some people using Basecamp kind of on a one-off basis, and then some people do still use Dropbox, but now that there's some integration, it's nice. And actually, I think they've kind of discovered that with the functionality in Central Desktop, they really don't need to use Dropbox anymore. So
that was the reason of the power user